The Softcat view is that for the foreseeable future, the world will be in some way hybrid, some traditional infrastructure under customers' ownership, some stuff in public cloud, and we also think people will be in multi-cloud, so that they may well be in AWS but consuming Office 365 and Salesforce, different services. Do you agree with that, or do you think that the world is going entirely cloud? Who wants to answer first?
From my perspective, I talk to an awful lot of enterprise customers that have a large amount of VMware stuff and do a whole bunch of different things and are looking at what to do next. At the other extreme, Ian's talking to the other end of the market,
yes.
And people that want to do Amazon are coming and talking to Ian about doing Amazon. So from my perspective, yes, it's a multi-cloud hybrid world. There is no doubt about that. I talk to customers that see that they want to have some stuff that stays on premises. For a variety of either valid or invalid reasons as well. I mean,
some of it's just perception, isn't it?
Totally. So, I go and see one customer and they said, "Oh yeah, we never want to put our stuff in the public cloud because it's our IP and it's really important." And you sit there and go, "Really? Have you looked at that? Have you thought that one through?" But that's just their perception. And I think in 5 years' time, they'll have a different perception. But there's very rarely a technology reason why you can't do something. Typically, it's a people and process reason. Typically, any technology discussion always ends up as being a discussion around people and process, as we've now done again. And it is literally that. It's just having people ready to do that. So, fine, if you were truly pragmatic about everything that you did with regards to IT, and you said, okay, I don't want to run data centers, I don't want to run computers because we're a pharmaceutical company and we don't do computers, then you'd move everything to the public cloud. But unfortunately, the reality is that doesn't happen that way, and it's going to take time for that to actually progress. And you'll find the best way to do things. At the same time, there's an economic reality to a lot of this stuff. I've said time and again that people always talk about, I talk about oil mining. When I was a kid, I was told there was 30 years worth of oil left, right? There's 30 years worth of oil left. And today there's 30 years worth of oil left still. And I can't, and then you go, why is that? And it's because what they don't put on the end of it is at current economically viable recovery rates. And what they mean is, 30 years ago, we hadn't started drilling Deepwater Horizon, and we hadn't done tar sands in Canada, and we hadn't done fracking because it was too expensive to do. But now the price is
relative to the cost of oil, whereas
in some cases it's just been invented.
Well, it's been invented. Exactly, it's technology that's been invented as well. So now it's been, but that's allowed the price to be acceptable for us to go and do those activities. It's exactly the same with on-premises IT. There's a lot of stuff you look at on-premises and go, I'd love to run that on Amazon, but actually the cost of moving it and refactoring it and transforming the whole thing to Amazon is so prohibitive that I might as well just leave it where it is until the point where it becomes, the migration cost is more than renewal or whatever it is. In fact, there's entire companies that I know of, one of them, a big red one, that actually does their pricing based on they look at how much it's going to cost a customer to refactor, and their renewal always comes in at just a little bit less than that. Sneaky, huh? So I think, there will be this continuum as people look at what's viable. So when you look at VMware Cloud and AWS, we're reducing some of the cost and making it easier
reducing
to
the
get
barrier
stuff
to
over
entry,
there.
reducing how hard it is.
Because you don't have to refactor a lot of stuff, it's easy to move stuff, it's all those kind of things make it easier for people to come and get closer to using Amazon's technologies. But it is literally, it's that kind of oil mining thing.
Yeah, one thing I think that's worth bearing in mind here is that, again, it's about worldviews. We often come to this from the perspective of IT professionals or infrastructure professionals, and I think that can in itself be a little bit distracting. If I look at how Amazon or AWS more broadly sources solutions to problems we want to solve using technology, I think that's quite an interesting case. So obviously we have direct access to AWS ourselves. We can use often services that are not yet publicly announced yet, or even initiate the creation of services that we think could be valuable for AWS and external customers to use. We still use a lot of subscription-based software services. We're still a customer of Salesforce, we're still a customer of Marketo, we use a lot of other SaaS products as well.
Do you use Office 365?
No, I don't think we do.
Good question.
But we do use a lot of other subscription-based software services, and I think this is really the way in which people will approach buying solutions for technology challenges in the future. It's a filter, okay? So the first thing you'll assess is there an off-the-shelf, pre-packaged software solution that I can use that gets me the outcome that I want? And if there is, I'll use it. It's probably the cheapest and quickest way to get to the business outcome that I want. If that doesn't exist, and this would of course include everybody that's producing those kinds of software-based solutions themselves, I'm going to turn to a platform that gives me as much of or as many of the components that I need to build that software solution as possible. That might be
kind of obscures all the hard gubbins that I call it.
Presents the software developers that I have that are going to build this higher order service with the resources that they need to be as effective as they can be, managing the software development lifecycle, security, and the other things that are important to them to build the products that we're creating. And there I go to platforms like AWS Lambda, and others that are available, of course, as well. And if I don't have a platform that I can use, or maybe the thing that I'm building is a platform in its own right, then I'm going to default down to infrastructure components, to virtual machines and other lower level components. But that's the lowest abstraction level I'm going to use, and I'm only going to use that as a last resort. I'm going to default to these higher order offerings, these higher order options that solve more of the problems for me without me having to think about solutions myself. I think that's how companies will consume IT.
But you've got to understand that a lot of our customers, a lot of general IT departments, don't have developers either. We sit on these stages talking about developers all the time. There's not a lot of customers you talk to that actually have developers.
Steve Ballmer did that, didn't he?
What?
Steve Ballmer did
bounced
that with
around
great
a lot
success.
shouting it. Yeah, but I think exactly to build on what Ian said, you've got this bit where most of our customers, or most of what's out there in the world, are select, implement, support in terms of software. So it's the customer has need. I'm going to select what the best option is. I'm going to implement that, and then I'm going to go through and support it. Now, in most cases, select, implement, support is there a SaaS solution? No, right, fine. I don't understand, because I'm not a developer, to go and use something like Lambda or whatever. And so actually, I'm then going to go and buy some kind of on-premises software solution like SAP or whatever and deploy that and build it and run it myself. Or go to an ISV that's got whatever that meets my need. So, I think as you guys make Lambda easier to consume and easier to make those bits available to the common man, should I say, then it should be easier to do. I think the big challenge that I challenge IT departments on is, where's your sales department? It comes exactly what you were talking about. You go to most IT departments and they don't have a sales department, because they don't focus on delivering products, they focus on delivering infrastructure. And they sit there and go, I want to be more like agile and stuff. And you go, okay, fine. If I'm working in the business at whatever your company is, right? So you're IT practitioners. If I worked for your company, I was head of sales, and I had a really cool idea about a mobile app that would change the way that my salespeople work and transform our business. Who do I talk to in your IT department? Who do I approach? Who's the sales guy that's going to sit with me and go, oh yeah, I've got the exact approach to do that. Here's the components you need. In fact, we can get this bit from here and that. In fact, here's my pre-sales guy that also works for me in the IT department that's going to technically put that all together for you. Doesn't exist. It's going to have to.
That's Jen in the IT crowd, isn't it?
Yes, basically. But I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. IT departments, and we've joked about this for a while.
Becoming more business analysts and technology analysts, almost.
I think that's where we're seeing ourselves. A lot of the conversations we're having with customers is that you get this, C-level person say, I want to do cloud first. And that means, what does that mean? Cloud first. And you've got all of this stuff that's still running in a traditional way. And certainly the conversations we're having is, where do I start? And you've got all this nice functionality that sits within these platforms, but basically, I've got all this stuff still running as it is, and I've got a choice to make. I either buy and renew this stuff, or I really start thinking differently about how it's running. And certainly the conversations we're having is how can we help those businesses make those decisions and sort of take out some of the stuff you've mentioned and start kind of prioritizing elements that will do that transformation and change that culture. And certainly business analysts or consultancy around those things is where we're seeing we and us adding value to a lot of organisations.
So this is our story of be cloud, don't buy cloud.
Yeah, basically,
But on the hybrid story, this is where you end up with this kind of religious fallacy thing. What happens is, the number of times you go to a conference and some bloke stands up there and says, we're all in on technology X. Whether it's we're all in on containers, or we're all in on Lambda, or we're all in on VMs, or we're all in on whatever. And you literally have to go and go, no, you're not, and you never will be. Sorry.
The world doesn't work like that.
We had a guy recently at the DevOps conference that said, we're all in on containers. Everything's going to be in containers, in the public cloud, all in. How many applications you got? 950. How many are currently running in containers in the public cloud? 12. Great, fantastic. Come and see me when you've got all 950 running in containers in the public cloud.
And then you'll be all in.
And then you'll be all in. But I'll tell you that's never going to
too
happen,
much
because they're not all going to be suitable.
You can't put, as we were talking about earlier, you can't put an AS400 in a container.
It's not all suitable for it. It's not all cost effective to do so.
There are customers that are engaged in all the migration programs, so they do exist, but as we've already mentioned, they've got a validated business case for that migration program that it makes sense for them. So, and I think that, again, is an important filter that customers will use. What are the benefits and risks of making this transition? If the benefits, like in the case of News Corporation, for example, are that they can return large amounts of city centre real estate back to their property team or exit the leases on buildings and free up a lot of OPEX and potentially access capital through the sale of property, that can be a pretty compelling business case for a customer that wants to embark on or initiate the large-scale migration program of the type we've seen there.
No longer about the IT
Well, it's about business benefit, isn't it? IT is part of the business, you should forget that.
Yeah.
And for News Corporation, what they've done is close down around 34 data centres around the world.
Wow.
Moved about 3,000 apps to AWS and achieved a big financial benefit by doing that, $100 million actually. They returned for other uses within the business over 3 years by embarking on that program. So there are examples of it, but it's all...
Which in an industry that's maybe under threat, you know, is $100 million to invest in what's coming next is really important.
But again, a lot of that would have been lift and shift of VMs. Right? That's the whole point. So they've not actually refactored or replatformed stuff. And it could have quite easily been into an Equinix data center, then it could have been an AWS. But so, you know, yes, they're all in on public cloud, but they've just moved stuff to run in Amazon.
So where do people... My partners have played a big role as well, to talk about the kind of role that partners have in assessing those applications and how to make that shift, of course.
Yeah. So, you know, that was going to be my next question, is where do people start with this stuff? If, you know, if you're not going to move all of it, but you think you're going to move some of it or create, you know, where do we begin?
Yeah, so I mean, we're developing, and I think others are as well, the frameworks to be able to go in, understand application estates, understand the data, start basically looking at where best for those services and elements to run. And so we break things into work streams, and we're seeing sort of natural steps. You know, Office 365 in a lot of cases are people's first steps into going to some kind of cloud model. You know, the identity piece, the authentication piece, integrating that into your existing environment is kind of the first steps as to what people are doing. And the question is, why wouldn't you go to Office 365 nowadays? That's, in many cases, a compelling reason not to do it. And then you start getting into the more complicated areas of applications. And that's where it can get tricky. The interdependencies, how things communicate, all those things really need to be factored in, as well as security, the networking, the latency. And so, you know, we've developed certain services where we can sort of take that out, extract it, and present it back into kind of information that's relevant to your business. Because every business that we see is different. They've all got the same challenges to a point, and they all potentially want to go to a hybrid or a cloud model. But the businesses are different, so they serve different customers, and they have different requirements. And it's being able to understand that almost end-to-end journey for a user, if you like, within that environment and the application as well. And sometimes IT don't, certainly infrastructure people, they don't really understand that. They're just running and keeping the lights on and not really understanding the business outcome or the business benefit. And certainly we're seeing us going in and supporting organisations to kind of extract that information and present it back to them.
Yeah. You guys have any, other than upgrade to vSphere 6.5, as we found out earlier, places for people to start with this stuff?
We've got a few things there. We've got a couple of frameworks that we've developed. The Cloud Adoption Framework, which is a series of assessments that we would go through with the customer to evaluate their application portfolio and their readiness to adopt a cloud-based operating model. That's something that's normally delivered by our professional services team at AWS, which we have quite a large team now here in the UK that will do that with customers. But actually it's normally delivered through partners. So we would enable Softcats of this world to deliver that to their customers using our IP. Often partners will extend that with their own knowledge and practice that they've developed as well. The second thing we've built is services and tools to help customers do this, and there's a lot of stuff in that area. We've got an application discovery service that can map and discover existing applications.
You're suggesting that customers don't necessarily know all of the applications that they've got?
We have a database migration service, which today has helped customers migrate over 30,000 relational databases, either from on-premises or privately operated data center infrastructure to AWS managed services, or vice versa, because you can use it bidirectionally. This has been used by customers to move away from proprietary engines such as Oracle onto open engines like MySQL, MariaDB, or even onto high-performance AWS engines like Amazon Aurora for RDS. We also have these interesting physical products. Amazon Snowball, which is a 100 terabyte ruggedized suitcase, which you can have dispatched to your data center or facility, plug into your network, copy data to, and then we'll return, physically pick it up, move it back to an AWS region, and load the data into our Amazon S3 service. So it's a mechanism for high bandwidth, high latency data transfer. It goes in a truck.
Isn't there a big
and then in
truck
the US
version?
we have a big brother, which is Amazon AWS Snowmobile,
That was it, Snowmobile, yeah.
It's a 50-foot long container with 100 petabytes of storage in it that you can drive up to your data center.
If you've got an HGV license.
Didn't have one of those in Die Hard movie?
Do you know what's funny is when you look at stuff like Snowmobile and Snowball, I was watching one of the cool videos about the algae thing to do with Snowball. There's guys using it to take it on boats and collect them.
Hydrographic survey.
Awesome. The whole point about that is in some cases that can be a throughput of actually, even though it's high latency, of a terabyte a second.
Yeah.
If you actually look at it, how long it's taken to transfer the data, because there's so much data collected here, and you dump it at the other end so far, you're actually achieving a terabyte a second, which you couldn't do in any other networking model.
It's like the old
interesting.
IP over Avian carrier.
Which is actually a proper RFC.
When you attach a USB drive to a pigeon's leg and fly it to...
It's a full RFC. If you're interested in RFCs, there is an RFC for IP over Avian carriers.
We've got a customer in the US called Digital Globe, which is a satellite imagery and geospatial data company. They moved 90 petabytes of data to AWS over the course of just a few days by driving this truck up to their data center and downlink, where they collect their data off their satellite network, filling the device, 50-foot long container, up with this imaging data, geospatial imaging data, driving it back to our region, loading it into S3, and then using that as a mechanism for processing and creating data products based on the satellite imagery archive that they have. So it's being used in Anchor by
So, but that gives you an idea. There's points which can't ever be fully cloud, if you know what I mean. So they're trying to find the best way to do it. We have VMware running on nuclear submarines, which is really quite cool. My favourite stat about that is they have racks at the front and the back of the submarine for redundancy. Which I always thought was quite funny, because if you've lost the front of your submarine, I don't think you're probably worried about the availability of VSAN. But there's a lot more scenarios like that. We're working on ruggedized kit now that can actually go and man portable for people to carry out into the field and dump in a tent to run desktops off and stuff like that. So I think you're going to see there's a lot more technology moving towards the edge, and we're seeing that with IoT as well. A lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is around edge gateways and stuff we've done with Pulse IoT and other things, where people are, because of network latency problems and bandwidth problems, are trying to push more and more intelligence to the edge. And so a lot of the projects we're on now are, how do you get AI to the edge? So,
well, you don't want to transport back to the cloud all the data that you don't need to transport. You want to drop everything that you possibly can.
If you look at, for autonomous vehicles, for example, the way that Tesla work, they have a centrally developed AI model for autonomous driving, which they then push out that model to the local cars, and the cars execute on. You couldn't have it that the car's driving around and pushing all that data back. So necessarily you're going to see devices move closer and closer to the edge. So again, that's where some customers are looking at what we're doing with VMC on AWS and other things as that bridge, so they can start to have, a box in every retail store that enables them to run in a disconnected mode, but then is connected back to the full raft of services when it can be to be able to do everything they want to do.
We have a few services that are relevant here as well. We have Amazon AWS Greengrass, which is edge computing runtime, which allows you to push down the functionality that's embedded within the AWS IoT service to edge devices. It was developed in response to requests from customers in resource extraction, agriculture, aerospace that wanted to have disconnected device infrastructure. I think when IoT first started, we kind of figured that you'd have one processor per physical entity, which is not really realistic if you've got an aircraft or helicopter, an area that you're pretty familiar with, Joe, now. You're going to have multiple sensors, multiple microcontrollers on the airframe, and you might want to collect and process and act upon events from those sensor infrastructure locally.
In real time,
disconnected, and that's why AWS Greengrass.
And then scoosh it back to the cloud for long-term analytics. But I guess it's like, if you're doing CCTV, you probably don't want to pass back and store all of that CCTV footage from all of your retail stores. You probably only want to send back the bit where something moves or something changes.
The problem we're dealing with actually, more broadly, the guy who runs IoT, sort of the chief IoT thinking within VMware, a guy called Greg Bellella, he puts it really well. We're trying to invert the internet. The internet is currently architected for people to upload a cat video once, and for that cat video to be then pulled down and watched billions of times. Whereas if you think about what you're doing with IoT, it's completely the other way around. You're trying to push billions of bits up at the same time and then pull back one piece of insight. So it's almost, if you look at the way the infrastructure is designed, so over time you're going to see the internet will evolve, and we're working with some of the network vendors and people at Amazon as well, as to how that will evolve the internet and the internet structure itself to be the other way around, because the way the data going in is going to far exceed the data coming out. So it's a very interesting world to be mixing in.
And we're doing some development around that as well. Certainly in the last month, I think it's really fast in terms of the movement of what people are expecting it to be able to achieve. We're seeing retail, construction, people who already got sensors on things, they're not doing anything with that information. They're asking us to go, what can we do with this information? And so, it's up to the channel as well to kind of develop, I think, and change slightly to provide support for organisations that want to make use of that data and start using some of those services you've mentioned.
And that's where our IoT player at VMware comes in, because if you go and talk to most people about IoT, it's all excited about collecting data and then analysing it. Look at the insight you can get. It's not our play at all. That's for people to build on top of what we're doing. We're talking about building a secure infrastructure to do that, because what we're going to help you with is the gateway there and available? Is it up and available? Are all the sensors up and available? Are they patched? Are they secure?
Have we been hacked?
Yeah, is the connection back to Amazon's data center where you're actually doing the analysis fully secure and encrypted and that kind of thing, so that you don't get the future thing where what actually happened is people start hacking cameras and using them as a botnet. We can actually go around that. So ours is much more, the Pulse IoT product is much more around securing that layer of the infrastructure piece. It's still an infrastructure play again, to allow people to then build their platforms on top of, and that's why we're working with Bosch and other people. So it's along those similar sort of lines, but it is stuff moving out further to the edge, and what we're pushing out to the edge is getting thicker and thicker, which is quite interesting. And I think you'll see a large play there by ARM.
By ARM, yeah. Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Lightweight processors. And,
our Greengrass runtime is spawned on its ARM.
Yeah. But you're seeing the hardware manufacturers develop hardware for exactly that sort of application. It's ruggedized stuff that you can hide away on the back of the screen. It's quite interesting. So, we kind of touched on it there, but connectivity, getting stuff into the cloud is hard. Difficult, you've got your on-premise data center, you want to get stuff into the cloud, you want to move data backwards and forwards. Data has gravity. Any advice on the connectivity side of things?
I'm not sure it's as hard as people think, actually. So we've got these physical transportation devices at AWS that I've talked about for your high latency, high volume. We've also got AWS Direct Connect, which I mentioned earlier. With that, we have
that's effectively bringing AWS on net to your...
Yeah, we have a very large ecosystem of telecommunications operators that we work with, who will deliver you AWS connectivity in a variety of different ways, whether that's high bandwidth optical or whether it is integrating access to AWS with existing network services that you have. So injecting AWS routes into your existing VPN or wide area network that you're operating. And then additionally, you can run overlay networking appliances or use our own native VPN access service to connect to AWS securely over the public internet as well. So there's quite a few different options there. And customers use these services at high scale. Probably one of the best known customers that we have in the UK using this is the BBC for iPlayer.
Oh yeah.
So every time you watch a TV program or other piece of content on iPlayer, the content transcoding happens in AWS. So they ship all of their video and audio content from digital playout locations into AWS over two 10 gigabit direct connections, haul it to our region in Dublin at the moment, transcode the data, and then position it for download by the various different applications and clients that play the content. Every day they're ingesting 21 terabytes of data by that mechanism. So it's a solved problem on AWS if you use these connectivity approaches that I'm describing. The Direct Connect service can also be partitioned using VLANs to enable you to have public and private connectivity on the same physical bearer. So you can have some networks which are connected to VPCs for private access, and some networks that are connected directly to public AWS endpoints. So you can also take your API-based access to AWS control plane and data plane endpoints off the public internet and benefit from this high performance, low latency connectivity as well.
And the VPC bit's really important to point out, because there's an ability to run workloads that are not connected in any way to the public internet.
I was going to say, there's a lot of reference architectures now available to be able to, create an enterprise platform, and the concepts are no different to how they are architected on a VMware platform. You have network separation, you need security, you need all those same components, ports open between certain elements, and those reference architectures are really important, and to be able to, certainly in hybrid play, to make sure what you're configuring out there in certainly the public cloud meets those compliance policy requirements for organizations. I think that gets missed a lot, especially when you give developers carte blanche to do what they want. A lot of the operational elements get missed. So the flexibility is there, but that operational element and architecture models, they're so
We
important.
can help people with all
absolutely. And I think that's
shenanigans.
most of the conversations we have are around that really. How should it be architected? How should it be configured? And how can it be secured?
So Ian talked about cloud operations in an earlier answer, and I think that's very key to understand that a lot of people, it's a different operating model to go and use AWS, especially using public-facing AWS, for example. I mean, if you're using private VPC AWS, it's not really different at all, to be brutally honest. In fact, you do VMware, it's not different in any way. But I think, it is that's another one of the barriers to people as to how they get into using cloud, is it's a different operations model that they have. And it's perfectly normal, and there's billions of people doing it already, so to speak. It's almost like, it's not as scary as you think, but getting people over that hurdle of how do I do cloud ops is very, very difficult.
Yeah, and that's what we see really, the culture change within IT organisations to want to use these technologies, but there has to be a slight change in terms of how they work to really make use of this technology.
Well, they need to change the way they think about stuff. You change the way you think about backup, you change the way you think about DR, you change the way you think about availability, you change the way you think about an awful lot of stuff. So a lot of your existing processes either don't apply or are strangely irrelevant and broken when you try and do it in a public cloud.
Yeah, sure. What does that mean from a skills model? People having to learn new skills. How do they do that? How do they get access to the knowledge and experience that they need to?
So we've invested a lot in developing our own training curriculums. I'm sure VMware have their own training programs as well. So as I said, we had a couple of different domain areas that we started with in architecture and operations. We've added to that quite recently with specialty courses and specialty certs. There's a lot of really good, high-quality third-party training material as well, which a lot of our customers use. I was actually with a customer last week in South Africa in the finance segment, and they had a learning zone provision within their offices where as part of their transformation program, their team members could go and learn more about how to take advantage of this new technology delivery model. They had Safari books, and they had, I think Udemy was the subscription provider that they had as well for the e-learning environment with all of their courseware, but there are others as well, Cloud Guru, and a few others as well that are operating in that space, providing really high quality training resources. We also provide labs, online labs, and we also have this free tier that can enable customers to get started on AWS at no cost and experiment a little bit with how they use the services. Something else we've done in the UK is a program called AWS Restart. Probably everybody here is already an IT professional and in work, so maybe not relevant to you as individuals, but it might be relevant to your organisations. What we've done with Restart is partner with the MOD and partner with the Prince's Trust, and we're training service leavers and disadvantaged young adults with the skills required for them to operate in the cloud. So equipping them with the basic level of skill to get their first role in IT, but working in this new technology domain. So it's partly a CSR, corporate social responsibility initiative on the part of AWS, but it's also
feeding the people who will then be able to do the work.
Feeding the ecosystem with skills, helping our customers and our partners get access to some of the skills that they need in order to help adopt AWS more rapidly.
I would say though, having ESX running in AWS in a way means that a lot of organisations don't have to change. They have skills in ESX. They can use vCenter. They know how those things work. But it is kind of a small steps to start utilising some of those services.
True, but there's a risk there, and I was challenged on this by one of our big customers of the week. They said, "Isn't there a risk with VMC and AWS that customers can just lift up their existing rubbish and move it over?"
Yeah, of course,
and not change what they do? And I kind of go, "Yes, there is entirely, but that would be your fault if you did that." So if you don't take advantage,
we can't blame you for that one, Joe.
No. I mean, just because I make it available to you doesn't mean that you use it in that way. So yes, there is the risk that you could just lift your existing NT4 machines and run them in AWS, which theoretically you could. If you're doing that, then maybe you want to look at why you're making those choices.
Right, we should talk about security and sovereignty of data. Is this a non-question anymore?
What most customers, I think, have come to appreciate is that the security controls and visibility that's available in AWS surpasses what they would have in privately owned and operated.
You can afford to build enormous amounts of
maintain a high bar, and a significant proportion of those 1,017 enhancements that we made last year were in domain areas associated with security and compliance.
And you provide attestation for things like payment card industry and so on as well, don't
ISO
you?
27001, payment card industry, cybersecurity essentials, and a whole raft of other compliance standards that are relevant in different parts of the world. Now, you need to evaluate which services you're using and where in the world you're using them. We actually introduced another service called Artifact, which is intended to simplify the process of customers gathering information about compliance. Because our platform is expansive and obviously globally distributed. So we now make it simpler for customers to check out, I'm using S3 in the London region and I need ISO 27001 compliance. Do I have it? I'll give you back a compliance report that says quite clearly for that.
I mean, clearly it only makes you compliant up to the level of service that you consume. Anything that you put over the top
we
is...
have the shared security responsibility model, which lays out the responsibilities that customers assume by using the platform and the activities that customers have to focus on. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, we announced that all AWS services would be GDPR compliant in time for GDPR effective date in 2018. So that's another kind of area that customers don't have to worry about. But it doesn't mean that customers shouldn't protect their data. Obviously, you're responsible for data that you choose to place on AWS. And
correct, as the controller.
As the controller. So for that, we also provide cryptographic tools and we provide integration points with customer key management infrastructure as well. So if you have data that you consider to be sensitive, personal data, critical IP, data that is anyway regulated, then you should use cryptographic tools to protect it before and during the period that it's stored within AWS. In fact, you should use those same tools if you've got it on your own premises as well, by the way. It's not just a
absolutely.
It's not difficult to do it, so just take that step.
In fact, under GDPR specifically, there's a lot more onus on the controller than the operator. And so as the user of the service and as the owner of the control of the data, there's a lot, it's not too hard for someone like Amazon or ourselves to become GDPR compliant because a lot of the onus is on the consumer. I mean, but we banned security as a topic at Cloud Camp 5 years ago because no, that's different. For that exact reason, because it just kind of it's like done. We just don't. It's not something that comes.
It's a mindset thing rather than an actual thing. I think.
It's an awareness thing. I think customers basically fall into 2 categories. Those that are not as well informed, maybe we haven't done a good enough job of educating them about the realities of security in the cloud, and those that are. Those that are generally acknowledge that security standards are higher in the cloud than they are in the infrastructure that they are not operating.
I think there's a legislation piece here as well, though. So there's bits where law doesn't quite keep up. So there's certain places like, when you talk about our VCAM partners, the non-Amazon clouds, there's some of those are successful because they're, for example, an entirely German-owned company in German data centers run by German people under German law, purely German, which is funny because the German government uses AWS. So you're kind of like, well, hang on a second. So, in Germany, but you know what I mean? So there's a fair amount of legal grey here that, from our perspective as cloud providers, is fairly clear cut. And in fact, as when we start doing VMware Cloud on Amazon, we'll just inherit all of that. The compliance that's been done for Amazon will be available as well.
And I know VMware are almost aggressively becoming a security platform company and trying to build as much security into your software as
we are. There'll be an announcement at VMworld as well about a new product line that we've got in there specifically that we're doing for application security with ESX.
This is Project Goldilocks.
So we'll announce that a bit more formally at VMworld and talk a lot more what we're doing.
And that's really quite interesting. So if you're following VMworld, keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be quite a change because what we've done traditionally at VMware is we've had security, but in pockets and bits and pieces. We've never really talked about security because we don't have a security product. So we have a lot of security
platforms.
We have security in lots of things we do, so NSX and AirWatch and ESX itself, all those bits inherently, but we don't have here's a story for the CISO. And I think what you're going to see over the next couple of years is that there will be an evolved story for the CISO from VMware that will involve both, on-premises and off-premises and what we can do in that space.
As an infrastructure operator, we couldn't operate our business without
Of course not.
We have the right level of protection in place to give customers the assurance that they need to trust us to operate their workloads.
Do you think people use it as an excuse not to embrace cloud?
I think they have historically, but I think if you're a CIO now and you're standing there with your arms folded saying the cloud is not secure,
if you're trying to hold back the sea, right?
Your peers are going to be rolling their eyes at you and thinking, does this guy really understand his domain? Because obviously you've got the CIO of Capital One, the CIO of GE, the CIO of Philips, the CIO of PostNL,
Well, and all the government stuff that you talked about.
It was a convenient fallacy.
Yeah.
I just want to pick up a point that you made actually about being well informed. The information is there, and there's plenty of it around. I think what we find is that there's a lot of organisations, they're firefighting, they've got business as usual, having to keep the lights on.
They're too busy running the stuff.
Yeah, so when you actually get them in a room, which is difficult enough, you sort of get a security compliance team, you get the networking team, and then you start challenging them slightly about what they do and don't know. And what you find is a lot of it is they just don't know. They just don't know. They know that you have to give them that direction because they're just going in every morning and they're doing their job and they're having to work late and do overtime to keep things running.
So you exist in this kind of bubble. I know we certainly do, a sort of, constantly discussing these topics, living at the edge of this, and then you have to understand that there's people out there that literally do spend their life fighting fires and don't get the chance to read about the new stuff and know what's available to them.
So clearly technology goes wrong, even in the public cloud sometimes. There are outages. Any advice to people on how to architect to avoid those outages and to make sure that their applications continue to run?
We have a framework called the Well-Architected Program, which has been developed after engagements with tens of thousands of customers worldwide in building new applications and migrating existing applications to the cloud. It has 5 pillars in it, actually. One of them is availability. So if anybody wants to investigate that, it's available as a free set of documentation on the AWS website, and I really would recommend it. It's actually the inception of that. It's a service now, the AWS Well-Architected Service, but it was created here in the UK by the individual that used to run solutions architecture for AWS here in the UK, a guy called Philip Fitzsimons. He's now the worldwide leader for the Well-Architected program globally. It's something that's constantly being evolved in response to new best practices that are developed or issues that are identified in particular customers. So we're trying to keep the framework fresh and continuously inject new IP into it. So that would be our overarching set of guidelines for customers that want to build applications in the cloud and map the needs of those applications to architectural principles. And then of course we have technical features which we can probably spend the rest of the day talking about.
Absolutely. I think people sometimes feel if they throw it up into the cloud, all backup HADR is all taken care of, but you've got to turn the right services on.
You want to turn it on in a way which is appropriate to your needs.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't wear a $15,000 gold-plated Rolex to plaster your bedroom, right? So you don't have to gold plate everything. If you're running a quick and dirty test, then architect for cost. So you can basically move sliders and turn dials with AWS in the cloud to make sure that you're optimizing your workloads for the characteristics that are most important for them. And that's what we recommend.
And so when you look at this as a broader perspective, the CIOs I'm talking to, that's why they're talking about multi-sourcing. So they would be, well architected on AWS, but they're also looking at using other clouds on top of AWS as a broad spectrum of how they don't end up with all their eggs in one basket, so to speak. Because I think a lot of them are concerned about that. I don't think you're going to see a lot of portability, as we talked about before. I think offline.
The overheads.
I don't think you're going to see people like randomly moving people. I really don't.
Moving the data is hard.
Well, it's not that, right? I don't see that a particular customer is going to run their application in Amazon in the morning and Azure in the afternoon because the spot price.
That was what people used to talk about. You'd have a dashboard and move stuff around based on lowest cost.
It's not going to happen that way because partly because if you do well architected something like Amazon, it just stops it being so portable.
Well, that must introduce a huge amount of risk.
Those services aren't available on other clouds, and likewise, if you are well architected within another cloud, you're not going to be able to transport those services so easily. So I think people are now looking at how they multi-source and use those as platforms to build applications across. And again, I don't think you're going to build an application, a single application that's going to use 3 different clouds for redundancy, because I don't think it's going to work that way. But you're going to look at your business as a whole and say, okay, the most business critical applications you're going to handle in different ways.
It's the best way to source a solution to this problem. Just like you probably wouldn't run 2 CRM systems in order to reduce dependency on Salesforce.
You don't.
That's a great analogy.
The point is you want to have your data integrated so that you can maximize value realization from that data.
Absolutely.
Even customers which you would regard as all-in AWS customers like Netflix, they do take steps to protect the data that might result in that data being stored elsewhere as well. They're quite public about that. But I agree with Joe, actually. I think that the overheads of building in this level of hedging outweigh the benefits from doing so.
And if you talk to Netflix themselves about I mean, obviously now Amazon themselves, not AWS, Amazon is a direct competitor to Netflix.
Yeah,
right? So,
but they still use AWS.
And they still use AWS, and they say, well, it's because they've invested so much in what they're doing in AWS. The cost of being a beta customer again for another cloud is way more than the benefit that they get from running.
Well, the same goes to Microsoft and Amazon, AWS. If you look at Microsoft and Azure and AWS direct competitors, and yet AWS spend more money on Windows licensing than anybody else globally, back to Microsoft. So it kind of, it's within their best interest to keep AWS churning.
There's a large number of customers only using vSphere. They're not using NSX, they're not using vSphere, they're not using a lot of the services that would enable them to then unlock and use other public cloud services as well.
I mean, we've seen a lot of customers, buying NSX from us and actually not using it for what it should be used for. So this is kind of a use case for really, accelerating.
It's a connector.
Well, it enables stuff, doesn't it? Yeah. So you mentioned Netflix. They're a kind of a born in the cloud player, as it were. What can we learn from people like Netflix?
Maybe the way we closed out our one-to-one conversations, probably the most important attribute of how they work, which is it's a product-centric mindset. So everything is cast in the context of products and features that they deliver to customers. It's not cast in the context of infrastructure. So it's working backwards in a way similar to the way in which Amazon works backwards. One of the things he said, a lot of people used to say to him, enterprise CIOs used to say to him, we can't do the same thing that Netflix do because you have all these smart people working for you, which we don't have. And he used to say in response to that, we hired them from you and got out of their way.
It's true.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
That's really interesting.
It's more about culture and about allowing your engineering, your product capability to come through and not suppress it or prevent it from delivering. I don't believe anybody wants to go to work to do a bad job. So as leaders, part of the role of a leader is to create an environment that enables people
that
to
will
flourish.
let them succeed.
But to expand on that product-centric story, I think you need to take it one step further as IT departments and make it user-centric. You talked about GDS earlier, and Liam Maxwell used to run GDS, had what is the user need phone cases, etc. I think the user-centric piece is really, really important because what you'll see when you go and talk to most enterprises is they're very business-centric. So we spend all our time aligning IT with the business. And what happens is you end up with things like most modern expenses systems because they're not modern at all. In that, if you think about the expenses system that you use, when you go and fill that expenses system in, or let's talk about your HR system for timesheets or whatever it is, when you fill that in, do you feel like you're actually using a system that was designed to make your life easier, or are you actually making the life of someone in accounts easier, right? And that's the difference between.
I think all of the Softcat people in the room feel that pain.
But that's the difference between a user-focused approach and a business-aligned approach. And so these businesses come to me and say they want to be more agile and more digital, yet they're still having their CRM system picked by sales management, not by salespeople. I mean, the CRM system you use is probably picked and selected based on the amazing management reporting and the fantastic dashboards you can get, not around how it changes a salesman's life to the point where he's showing the app to his friends going, this app's really cool, you've got to try this for sales, it's awesome. And so that's an approach that we've taken at VMware internally, is to become, and we've radicalized our IT department, which has been really interesting, to be focused on users, not focused on managers. So they don't talk to us anymore, they go and talk to users about what do you need. And the apps that we've seen come out of that, the way that they interact with us has been phenomenal. And I now have some amazing apps available to me through vWorkspace that, or Workspace ONE, that just make my life so much easier. But that's because we have this user-focused, not sort of business IT. And if you get user-focused, all the business data will be there because that's the model for Facebook.
Because the users will put it in, because you make it easy for them.
That's the model for Facebook, that's the model for Google, that's the model for everyone. Is if you, the model for Amazon's retail side of things, right, is if you make it so easy to use that everyone wants to use it, everything you want will fall out the back end of it automatically. So, if you want to ask me sort of what is the key thing in terms of transforming an IT department, it is changing to selling to users, not the business. And so what we're seeing is we're encouraging our customers and our partners to start to sell through IT departments rather than sell to IT departments, which is a big shift. Right? So rather than seeing an IT department as someone that you sell to as a partner, and rather as a consumer going and talk to someone like Softcat, someone you buy from, it should be more someone you go and talk to Softcat about how they help you sell to their users the next new sexy thing you're going to build for them to change their life. So that, come back to my previous point, when someone does come with that amazing idea for an app, you've got the answer, or you've maybe already built it, because you were focused on building something that they would want to use, not something that the IT department has delivered to the head of finance.
Most of the conversations we have start with, I've got 100 VMs, I want to move them to cloud. So it's getting past that element.
Oh, my
and getting further
favourite
in.
is we've started our digital transformation. I've ordered an all-flash storage array. That's a direct quote.
Nice. We still get, and you know, a lot of the conversations that end up in a cloud conversation start with, I want to buy VDI, please.
Yeah.
Because that's a way of making users agile.
I think the most important word in conversations like that is why.
Yes.
Just keep asking it until you get the answer the real answer. If it's 5 or 7 times, just keep asking.
Yeah, you know, we've seen that with projects that we're working on at the minute, you know, that started off with, you know, I want to buy virtual desktops, and became about trying to help the customer get to a point where they could modernise, and they couldn't modernise because their infrastructure was 8 years old.
And no discredit, we have people that come to us and go, I want to use the cloud. Why? Oh, because I've been told, you know, I want to use Amazon. It's the best one. We've been told we've got to be on Amazon. Why?
Because we're all in on Amazon.
Because we're all in Amazon.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, fine, well, let's talk about how you do that, and the whys, whatever cloud it is. And you actually get down to maybe, you know, there's different ways you can do some of these things.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's our job to challenge people on that stuff. And you know, I'm part of the existence of the CTO group in Softcat is to help our account managers to ask that why question.
And we're creating a mini army to kind of go in and ask those whys.
Yeah.
And I think traditional resellers, you know, of yesteryear were, you want to buy a flash, I'll sell you a flash, not a problem. And look, if they're going to be pushy about it, we'll sell them a flash.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we are asking the question more and more as to what you're trying to achieve and what's the business outcome. And I think that, you know, it's a challenge. It's a changing culture for us as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So, but we are definitely moving in that direction, and so we create this mini army.
Because this whole thing changes the services that we offer, right? You know, I'd be interested in your view on how we as a reseller, solutions provider, VAR, whatever we're called, change. But, you know, we're seeing it now. You know, our managed services stuff will be less about running infrastructure for people and more about helping people with their applications and their services that they run on your mutual combined infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, we had a customer recently that were running an application within our managed services division in a very, you know, old N-tier based architecture. Three-tier. And so we've challenged them and said, you know, you're running it on our platform like this, why don't you look to redo it in a different way? We'll help you redevelop it within the toolbox that exists within public cloud. And their answer was, why don't you tell us to us a year ago? And probably we weren't a year ago ready to have that conversation.
Yeah, we weren't ready.
Yeah, and they weren't ready to adopt it. So I think there's definitely been a shift, and certainly we've changed our mindset that we can provide that level of service now to give them a choice.
Yeah. What do you think should be? You know, we can't run or long term we won't be running infrastructure ourselves for people.
I think, as I said to you outside in our quick chat earlier, I think the benefits case for AWS in the cloud is pretty compelling. The challenge is a lot of organisations don't have access to the resources that they need to get to those benefits as quickly as they want to. I think that's the role of partners of the type that Softcat represent, consulting partners, is to bring in that expertise that you've developed across multiple customer engagements, be able to pool that resource, attract and retain that talent, and then apply that to multiple customers so that customers can move forward quickly and get to those benefits, get to those good outcomes.
So that whilst the customer might be doing it for the first time, we're not doing it for the first time.
You might have IP or practice expertise that you've developed that you can reuse. Or
you know, in any form of change, there's risk, and I see our role as helping. Yeah, exactly that. You know, as much as you can. You know, in any technology transition, there still is risk, but if we've done it before, we can bring that experience to bear.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.